So our last presenter this afternoon asks a very succinct but challenging question, or rather makes a statement: design is no longer enough. He's here to tell us that we really need to get back into manufacturing. Please put your hands together. Welcome, Mark Shayler.
Thank you for hanging around. I know it was a bit tricky getting here. I only live 30 miles away. It took me 2.5 hours to get here this morning, so I'm looking for an early finish, so I'll hurry up. I think it was Oscar Wilde, wasn't it, who said you should only talk in public for as long as you can make love in private. It was Oscar Wilde, wasn't it? So I've got 30 minutes to get through, so bear with me. Okay, so a little bit about me. When I was at primary school, I took the school out on strike and was nearly expelled over school dinners. They just weren't good enough quality, and I wanted sandwiches. And of course, the great irony in all that is when I went home to my mum and said, "Mum, we're having sandwiches," she said, "You're not having sandwiches. You want a hot meal every day, and it's going to be at school." So I had to go back into school the next day, the first kid in the queue, and I was having dinners. And I learned a really important lesson, actually. I learned at this point that with power or with influence comes huge responsibility, because the dinner ladies said to me, "Thank God you're having dinners, because if everyone goes to sandwiches, we don't have any jobs." And suddenly, in this little moment, I thought, shit, I've made a really colossal error. 5 years later, there were no dinner ladies at Sharnford C of E Primary School, and I still carry that guilt like a bag of cement. I then, when I was at sixth form, I started an a cappella grunge band. Well, grunge didn't exist then, but we called it death metal. An a cappella death metal band called the Purple Wyferns, and we almost got expelled for disrupting too many assemblies. And when I went to university during my holidays, I went and worked at Tesco in Hinckley, moving stuff around, but I wouldn't move the South African apples, because this was the 80s, remember? Everyone had a view on apartheid, and I refused to move it, and I got the entire temporary workforce, which were 300 people, also on strike and also nearly sacked. So I managed to escape that one because it was really great pay. And then I went to Asda when I left university, did some work with Bradford Council, and then got headhunted by Asda as head of their environmental team, and I almost got sacked there for being too green or too rebellious. So that's the end of my revolution. My revolution finishes here, because I quite like disruption. I then worked on eco-design for about 10 or 15 years. I helped start the Do Lectures up. How many of you have come across the Do Lectures? Any yet? So those of you that haven't, the Do Lectures, imagine the TED Talks, yeah? But loads better and in Wales. Right, that's the Do Lectures. I'm not joking. So we run that every year in Wales, every year in Australia, and every year in California. And I helped do that. I then wrote a book called Do Disrupt, which is about disruption and changing the way you do business. I run my company Ape, which is a small innovation, design, and sustainability consultancy in Ashby-de-la-Zouch. But what I really love doing, more than anything, is getting home, getting out some chilies, smoking them, thrice cooking them, smoking them again, and making hot, smoky bastard chili sauce, which is genuinely a brand, and you can genuinely go online and buy it. And that's really great, but it's distracted me from my day job, which is equally interesting. We just started this really nice project called Rebel Cell. Every time I go into a big company, and I work with companies that start size-wise from kind of Samsung, Mars, P&G, down to really small companies. And every time I go into a big company, they want to be like a small company. And every time I go into a small company, they want to be like a big company. So the question that I get asked the most is, how do I think like a startup? So what Rebel Cell is, it's myself and a colleague, and we go into large companies and we create really small startups, 6 people, 5 people, and we give them accelerated timescales, and we give them really small budgets, and we make them bootstrap, and they bring products forward, and they begin to develop them. It's really good. It's that kind of startup energy. And then one thing I'm starting this summer with the Do Lectures is a very small project called Ideas Farm, where we take 10 10 startups. It will not be the best startup school in the world, but it will be the best startup school for the world. So we're looking at social enterprises, a whole load of kind of assistive technologies, 2 weeks in Cardigan. We're looking for a 3D printing partner, actually, if anyone is interested. So that's my background. And I spoke last year, and last year I said that design was a superpower, and that designers were superheroes, and that you can right wrongs and you can defeat baddies with the power of a pencil or a mouse. And that's true. You can make things better. The thing about having that kind of power is that it has a downside too. You have the power to change lives. You have the power as a multiplier to make things significantly better. But you also have the power to make things significantly worse. So designers set the environmental, social, economic impacts of their products up front. And the problem with designers, in my mind, is that they follow briefs. And often the briefs are not written by other designers, they're written by accountants, or they're written by the competition. What shall we do? Well, we'll do what the other people did. What should we do? We did what we did last time, but we'll make it a little bit better. And I don't think that's good enough. I want designers to break rules, but I make designers do other things. I don't think that's enough. We face some really, really tough challenges. You've only got to look at the resource scarcity. I work with a whole load of companies, and not one of them hasn't got resource scarcity being discussed at the board. The circular economy, you've all heard of that phrase. That's a major, major part of their business strategy. It's one of Rolls-Royce, one of my clients, one of their biggest threats is where they get their materials from. That is a serious issue. And it isn't just where they get their materials from, it's the politics that come with materials. Every single one of you has got harm in your pocket. Every single one of you has got a mobile phone in there that has a tantalum capacitor in it. And the tantalum capacitor is unbelievably thin. It holds amazing amounts of charge. It's brilliant at what it does. It's very efficient at what it does. But it's made by using coltan. And coltan comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, amongst other sources. But unofficial estimates think that that's probably 65% of the origin of 65% of the world's coltan is the DRC. Now, to my mind, if you've got to use the words democratic and republic in the title of your country, it's probably neither of those two things. Probably. And every time you upgrade your phone early or you buy electronics, there's an impact somewhere else. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things at all. I'm just saying we need to be cognizant of the things that we do and the things that we buy. We live in really odd times. There's been some really interesting research in the States that tracks consumption patterns and, more importantly, tracks consumption reasons. And we're shifting from unconscious consumption through to conscious consumption. And I think in the end we'll end up with conscious unconsumption. We're beginning to track some of these trends, and they're real. And part of it is the ethical side of the stuff that we buy. And then there's the efficiency as well, just being more efficient with the stuff that we have. You all saw the carbon footprinting debate last week regarding the UK's carbon footprint. It's dropped, and there's a whole load of debate about actually has it dropped or is it just offshored? Do we just have that footprint somewhere else? Clearly it's the latter. But by not counting it, we're not doing anything wrong. That's the way the accountancy rules are set. But it isn't just carbon. In the center of China, where many of you people will send your designs to be made, there's something called a historic aquifer, a fossil aquifer. And it sits under the ground, and it doesn't get replenished when it rains. Once it's gone, it's gone. And we're using that aquifer to build or process some of the materials that build our products. And that aquifer arguably is better spent making people less thirsty. So every single thing we buy has a shadow impact. And I'm not saying we shouldn't buy things, and I'm not saying we shouldn't make them abroad, or maybe I am in a bit. What I'm saying is we need to be much more thoughtful about these things. We need to design stuff that lasts longer. That challenges so many business models. But the abiding question that I'm going to leave you with at the end of this presentation will be, how do we make more things, more money by selling less stuff? That is our challenge for lots and lots of reasons. So efficiency is super important. But then there's ethics. There was a day, and it wasn't that long ago, where those people that shopped at Primark or H&M or any of the fast fashion houses, and I'm not saying any of them are any worse than any of the others, Those people that shop there probably wouldn't buy stuff made in the UK. That day's gone. We're blended. Who's happy to go to Sainsbury's over here and then pop into Aldi or Lidl over here? We all do that. We do this blended consumption. And it's the same with the clothes that we buy. But every single piece of item that we buy from Bangladesh is made in conditions that were really similar to this building before it fell down. The cracks in the walls of this building were spotted the day before it fell down. And everyone was evacuated, and then everyone was put back in because they had orders to make. And every time you buy something cheap, then you're part of the problem. And this is really difficult because we don't have much money. So how do we afford T-shirts if we can't have them made there? It's really, really tough. I'm not saying the solutions are easy, but there's an ethical dimension to all the things that we consume as well. And we forget about this because what we do is we just say, well, they're members of the Ethical Trading Initiative and they'll have audits and they'll get paid reasonable amounts for Bangladesh. Maybe, but it's about $1.20 more per $100 garment to give someone a living wage. Who's happy to pay 1.2% more for someone to have a living wage? I know I am. Or maybe I'm unusual. So the ethics of what we do is really important. So these are significant challenges that are here today. And then this is my biggest thing. Skills. We live in a world where the skills that we used to have don't exist anymore. This is my granddad. My granddad used to work here in Coventry, Meriden. And he made, amongst other things, Triumph Bonnevilles. And that was great. And he was kind of my hero because everyone's granddad should make something exciting. My granddad used to bend metal. The problem with my granddad bending metal was when I wanted a catapult, guess what he made me a catapult out of? Triumph Bonneville handlebars. The elastic was about 1 inch square. I was only little. I couldn't budge it, which of course is what he wanted, because he didn't want me to go and shoot my brother, which is of course what I wanted. And so my granddad made these things, and it's amazing that we used to make nearly everything. My nan was one of 11 siblings. One of them was a guy called Noel Penny. And Noel Penny was one of the design teams for Jet 1, and more importantly for Jet 2, actually. He was just on the team for Jet 1, and he led the team for Jet 2. And when I went to see this in the Coventry Motorcycle Museum, I rang him. He's not here anymore. And I said, hey, Noel, I'm just outside looking at Jet 1. And he said, oh, brilliant. Can you look inside the grills on the side? Yeah. Can you see the wrinkled up toffee papers? I said, I can. That's what I can see exactly that. What are they for? The best way of getting great surface area in a small space was a wrinkled up wax toffee paper. So he designed and part of a team that made that. Another one of my great uncles designed the second skin roof on the Land Rover for use in the desert. You know, it used to have the 300, you used to have 2 skins on the roof. He designed that. Another one of them designed tractors for Massey Ferguson. Nearly all of my relatives designed or engineered in Coventry. That's what they did. It's what you did when you left school. You went and made something. What do you think they've all got in common? This is an interactive element to the presentation. They're all dead. Every single one of that generation, apart from the women outlived the men. My nan's still alive. She's 92 this year. Every single one of them are dead. And every single one of them took with them their skills. And that's criminal. And I know that the collapse of British manufacturing was as much about the quality of the products that we produced in the 70s. I understand that, because my nan had an Allegro. It was dreadful. And it rattled on the door. So like you do when you're 6, you think, I wonder why that is. So I pulled the door panel off, like you do when you're 6, because my granddad could make anything. He could fix it. And behind the door panel was a crunched up Coke can, which was purposefully put in there to make it rattle, so that it got returned, so that British Leyland had work to do. This was the era that we lived in. I'm not saying it's all good, but this is the way it worked. All those people are dead, along with their skills. And as a result, and because of price, if you think of that Marxist equation of production, raw materials plus labor equals product plus waste plus profit. Raw materials became more expensive where we are. Labor became cheaper everywhere else, more expensive when we are. So we offshored both of those two things. Profits increased, waste was free because the regulations abroad were not anywhere near as tight as they are here. And you ended up with this accelerated profits and an offshoring of our skills base. And this is great for emerging nations. This is awesome. They do things really well. But we've ended up doing what? What are we for? What is the UK for anymore? I don't know. Sorry, what was that? Pushing paper. Yeah, pushing paper and selling shit to people who don't need it or can't afford it. So China's really interesting because it's massively upskilled so fast. Some of the quality of the products, you'll know this, coming out of China is superb. Absolutely superb. It isn't rubbish, it's good stuff. India, incredibly inventive nation. Africa, also. And it's really interesting. These constraints, these difficult times, these are not hippie concerns. This is not tree hugging. Right? These are core. That's not me either. That's Al there. A long time ago. This isn't hippie shit. This is business. This is business critical. iPads are made in China. How many pairs of hands do you think touch an iPad during the manufacturing process? How many pairs of hands? Less than 10? More than 100? Higher? It's like Brucey. Higher or lower? Brucey bonus. 146 pairs of hands touch an iPad. And with every single pair of hands comes a brain. And with every single brain comes a hunger to not do that anymore. To solve problems. To stop making and start designing. Designed in California, made in China. That will become a thing of the past. It'll be designed in China, made in China. We know that this is going to happen. China's growth is astonishing. You don't need me to tell you that. This figure was fascinating. China used more cement in 3 years than the USA used during the entire 20th century. Holy shit. And I checked that back last night. Coors now sell more beer to China than they do in the USA. This market is colossal. This is economic growth. This is equality. Every single person there wants to consume like we consume. I'm pretty left-wing. I think that's perfectly reasonable. That's equality. That's equity. The markets are huge. And it's driven by the bourgeoisification of the population. We're going to see 3 billion more middle class, not just in China, in the East, in India, in Africa, emerging between now and 2030. 3 billion, that market is colossal. That's going to tip the economic power from the West to the East. At the moment, we can still buy these things. We still command some power and some supply chain control because we can pay more per unit. That's going to equalize. I'm talking 20 years out. That's going to equalize. And we'll see China stop manufacturing, and we'll see Africa begin manufacturing. And you know this is happening because you've only got to look at China's investment in Africa. It's huge. This country here, Liberia, second most commonly spoken language, one of the Chinese dialects. This country here, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. China built 4,000 roads, 4,000 kilometers of road, and 400 schools in return for every single ounce of copper mining rights in the DRC. This is one of the poorest countries in the world. This is one of the richest countries in the world because it's rich with things, with stuff. And China knows that if you can't get stuff out of the ground, you can't make things. It's a means of production. The investment in Africa is absolutely colossal. So, in this new world order, where do we fit in? What do? We don't make things. We have a decreasing design role. I'm working with 3 or 4 universities' design departments at the moment, from Loughborough through to the RCA in London. And there's a huge increase in the number of Chinese students, up to 50 to 60%. They're coming over perfectly reasonably learning how to do brilliant design because their country is going to boom. And those skills are what's needed to make it boom. This is good. This is a good thing. We're helping upskill. But we're also creating a competition. No, are we bollocks? Of course not. We're doing the right thing, trying to skill the world. So what does that mean for us? I think it can only mean one thing. We have to start manufacturing again. Because when there's 3 billion more middle class, and that purchasing power continues to grow over the next 20 years, who's going to make things for us? We are too small. We are too small a market. We're certainly, probably, too small on our own. So this is going to change business models. It's really difficult. I'm lucky. I earn relatively well, and so my boots were made in Northampton, my jeans were made in Cardigan, this T-shirt is made in America, but on like an American trade thing, and my jacket's made in Newcastle. I know not everyone can afford that. I'm lucky. But we don't have to buy them. The lease models, the shared ownership models that are emerging are astonishing. We sit in one of the most disruptive times in terms of business models. Look at Uber. They claim they are the most effective and efficient and largest job-producing agency in the world with 300,000 jobs. They don't own one car. This is weird. We live in a time where you can create jobs and not actually do anything. We live in a really disruptive economy. So we need to embrace new business models. And this is good. For every single person that I speak to, from Samsung right the way down to the guy that makes these jeans in Wales, is saying, I don't want to sell stuff anymore. If I sell stuff, the customer comes in, gives me the money, and disappears. If I have an ongoing relationship with the customer, I'll earn more money. Ford earned 20% of their profits from the sale of cars and 80% of their profit from the ongoing relationship with you as a car driver, a car owner. And it's the relationship with the consumer that's going to bring greater profitability in the long run. And the cost of sales decreases. So I bought a new Dyson Hoover. I bought a new Dyson vacuum cleaner recently, and Dyson came to fix my old one. Not personally, that would have been brilliant. Hi, I'm James. I understand you need a new motor. It was too old to fix. And so the guy came in and said, would you like to buy a new one? We'll give you £150 off. And we went, why? And he said, well, because if we sell it to you at £150 less than retail, that's a lot cheaper than you go into a retailer, but we're making a lot more money than selling it via the retailer. So they want a direct relationship. Every single one does. So the relationships with consumers, or between brands and citizens, is going to change. And it is going to put prices up, and we're going to have to start paying for things differently. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the circular economy, or the sharing economy, or the peer-to-peer economy. This is all happening at the same time, and it's a perfect storm of opportunity, and it's really scary, because there are no fixed points anymore. The sharing economy on its own, currently worth about $15 billion, according to Pricewaterhouse. Widely thought to be an underestimate. In the next 10 years, it will grow 22-fold. That is huge. How do we make money out of this? Because we've got to keep growing economically. I'm not saying we should stagnate. I'm just saying that we're running out of stuff to sell. And consequently, we need to earn our money in a different way. We have to change the way that we do things. There's no two ways about it. He or she who dares will win. And I think it was Ian Cheshire from of the Kingfisher Group who said, if you don't disrupt your business model, somebody else will. I phrased it slightly differently. It's better to disrupt your business model before some other bugger does. And I've had this conversation with people that make batteries, saying, why don't you just do rechargeables? Oh, we'd sell less. Yeah, but somebody else is doing rechargeables, and you'll probably sell less in the long run. There's a lack of foresight, and it's really interesting. And I stand by what I said in the last talk. Design is a superpower. You make beautiful things. You make me love things more. You make me happier with the products that you design or your services design. But that isn't enough. We have to start manufacturing again. And of course, what I started with, the story about Triumph, is a great success story in UK manufacturing. It's now producing bikes again. And Nigel Caborn is producing brilliant clothes again, and Hyatt Denim lead the way in denim manufacture, and Dr. Martens are beginning to make boots in the UK again. And every single small company I'm working with has brought something back to the UK for manufacture over the last 2 years, and that will only increase in pace. And I think we need to get behind it. We need to make this happen faster. Design isn't enough. I really enjoyed the presentation earlier, and I'm really sorry because I've forgotten the guy's name, MAS, the bike guy. Apologies. He drew attention to this false distinction we have between design and engineering. They're the same thing, and we've fallen into the trap of thinking that they're not. They're the same thing. No one said to Leonardo da Vinci, I almost said DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci, no one said to him, look, this painting thing, it's a bit shit. Don't bother with it. It shouldn't even look real. Come on. You want to get back on with designing your helicopter. Art and science is the same thing. Engineering and design is the same thing, and we need to build those skills together. And it isn't just about increasing mining or pulling more stuff out of the ground here, which we can do. I live in a coalfield area. There's still shed loads of coal in the ground. Raw materials aren't enough. I've just come back from an amazing break in Finland with my wife. And in Finland, in every second, 1 ton of wood grows. There's another ton. And another ton. And the Finns are hilarious. I love the Finns. The best vodka in the world, actually. But they say, we grow the best wood in the world because it grows slowly because it's cold. And all we do is sell it to Denmark, who turn it into beautiful furniture. So they've got part of the means of production, and they haven't got the rest of the means of production. I'm sorry I forgot your name. I really apologize. So it's not good enough. We need to make again. And this isn't easy. And you're going to all turn around to me and say, yeah, but we can't afford it. And I'm going to agree with you. I've got 4 kids. Tell me. I know all about financial problems. 2 of them are at university. 1 of them's in London doing fine art. It's a killer. But she'll be brilliant, and it'll be great. So we have to change the way we own things. The volume of stuff. How many of you have read Dave Bruno's 100 Things? No, you buggers. You should all read Dave Bruno. Dave Bruno wrote a book saying, could he survive on 100 things? American guy. And he didn't make it. I'll cut it short. Don't bother reading the book. He never quite made it to 100 things. But I was reading the book, and I was driving back from a meeting, and I had in the back of the car my cycling gear and my Thai boxing gear and my work gear. And I'm thinking 100 things. And I just went through in my head 130 things in my car. That is shit. I didn't include the car. So trying to do more with less is super, super important. Not judging ourselves by what we own. There's that brilliant piece of Banksy art. It said, I'm sorry. The lifestyle you requested is out of stock. We aren't what we own, and we've fallen into that trap. I do it. There's a uniform in my world. It goes like this: Dr. Martens or Pozu shoes, Hyatt denims, some nondescript T-shirt, Finisterre or Patagonia zip-up top. That's the uniform. And all of those labels mean something. They mean nothing. They mean nothing. We're not what we own. We're what we believe. We're the people that we love. When you die, you won't think, oh, do you know what? I really wished I bought those Prada shoes. Fucking hell, I wished I'd spent more time in front of my CAD system. I wished I'd had more rows with the accountant. Yes, I'll be there with that one. You won't wish any of those things. You'll think back and you'll be proud of all of the relationships you've had, all of the people that you helped love you and helped love themselves. You'll look at the things and the lives that you touched, and it won't involve a label. And it's really difficult to change an entire culture of consumption. I know this is a big fight. I'm quite up for it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm into it. And what drives me, it's not the consumption thing. I'm as guilty as anybody else as liking shiny shite. It's the skills. What do we do? I'm from this part of the world. I remember driving down the road and watching the factories close and an entire cloud of cyclists come out of the gates. Everyone made something. Everyone had a skill. I don't know what people do. They might tell me what their name is, what their job is. Oh, yeah, I'm a project manager in the logistics world. Yeah, what do you do? Well, if you were dead, what would happen? Nothing, probably. Too many managers, not enough leaders. That's what we need, not enough doers. So, I think we need to reshore. I think we need to link design and manufacture again, and I want to see stuff made in Britain again. And call me naive. I'm happy to be criticized for being naive. I'm happy to be the guy that puts his hand up and says we can do things better and be proved wrong. But I can't see where we'll be in 30 years if we don't start manufacturing again. I genuinely can't. Thank you.